Hi, and welcome to another episode of Destination Ipswich. I'm Gordon Harris, the Ipswich Town Historian. Today we're at the trailhead for the Dow Brook Conservation Area up on High Street. This neighborhood is actually pretty interesting in itself. All the way from the clam box up to the Raleigh town line is called Ipswich Village. And it was a neighborhood that actually identified more with Raleigh. At one time, it was all owned by descendants of a guy named Joseph Jewett. And pretty much every house all the way down to you get to Mile Lane was lived in at some point by descendants of Joseph Jewett. So what we're going to do today is start out at the Dow Brook Conservation Area, and then we're going to go past Dow Brook Reservoir, and then Bull Brook Reservoir. We'll end up over at the Mile Lane playing fields. So it's a one-way walk we're going to do today. It can be done as a loop as well. We'll talk about it along the way. So let's get started. First things we're going to come to here is this nice footbridge. Has a sign on it about the vernal pools. What we're looking at is sort of a temporary pond, a seasonal pond. That's what a vernal pool is. It's a great place for peepers, other wildlife, and it feeds the aquifer. So there's a nice sign here. It explains all about vernal pools. Vernal means spring, and the depressions in the ground that temporarily fill up the water during the winter. They'll usually dry up during the dry months of the summer. But they're very important. We used to call them just swamps or whatever and didn't really recognize the value of places like this. So many of them were filled in. But these are what feeds the aquifer. And as a matter of fact, this is probably feeding the water to the Dow Brook Reservoir, which is where we're headed on this trail. A lot of little side trails here. I haven't explored these yet, but the whole trail system connects up with the Bay Circuit Trail. The Bay Circuit Trail goes all the way from the South Shore up to Plum Island. It's just a network of trails and sometimes on-road paths that connect the trails that form a half circle around Boston. And this is very much a part of it. Some of these side trails will take you up in the Raleigh, different places, and Prospect Hill is right over here. There's a side trail for that. Great places to explore. We're just doing a part of it today. It's a great place to take children's groups. You see here that they've made a little shelter of sorts, and still standing. Coming to a major fork here in the trail. See the sign, there's a red arrow, and that's the long loop. I've taken that before. It circles a little farther around. It's just one of the many options you have when you're in this trail system. Up there somewhere there is a right-hand trail, and that will take you up to Prospect Hill and Raleigh, which used to have a ski slope there many years ago. So we've been in some uplands here, and we're starting to descend down towards the Dow Brook Reservoir. It's about a half a mile, I guess, from the place where we park by White Farms Ice Cream till you get down to the reservoir. It's called the Dow Brook Reservoir. The stream, I'm starting to hear it right over here. It actually travels sort of a west. The origin of this stream is some ponds and other streams about where the Ipswich Country Club is. So I hear it running right down below us here. Now the Dow Brook watershed is really quite, it's small, but it has a lot of water. It feeds the reservoir that we're coming to, and it supplies actually probably about half of the water or even more that we drink in Ipswich. When the reservoir is full, it's actually supplying perhaps 70% of the water. We'll also be going to the Dow Brook Reservoir on our way to the other end of our trail today. That feeds into the Dow Brook, especially when water levels are low. They supplement Dow Brook with that water. So here we come. We can see the reservoir now. We're almost there. I'm standing at the northern end of the Dow Brook Reservoir. Now the trail system will continue left there. There's a trail here going right. You notice that there are red arrows on the trees. This trail, if you take it, it has a sign just around the turn in the path that says this trail ends at 1,000 feet. So yeah, you can take that one, but you will have to turn around and come back. So if you're coming from the other direction, it's actually kind of easy to miss this trailhead. There's not a sign saying this way to White Farms ice cream. So as a matter of fact, the straight ahead trail that ends is actually a little larger. But you will see the red arrows with pointing to the left, and that would be the direction you go. Easy for us to tell the day though, because we just made it to the reservoir. So we've reached the point where you get a major fork in the trail. I often start at the Mile Lane fields, which is where we're going to end our walk today, and I take a longer loop around on the red trail. It comes out here, and then of course what we're going to do now is proceed straight ahead. It's a nice loop. The only thing that we are actually missing is maybe about 500 feet or so just up the hill, a little around to the left. It's this huge rock. It's not one of the glacial boulders that we see so many of in this area from the more recent glacial period. This is a rock that actually dates back about 500 million years ago, when there was a supercontinent called Gondwana, and just like those huge rocks at Town Hill, going down north Main Street, you see these rocks there. These drifted 500 million years ago from where the South Pole is now and globbed on to continental North America, which at one time ended where the Appalachian Range is now. So how that rock is an outcropping, how it just happens to pop out of the ground there, I don't know, but it's an interesting thing to take a look at when you're on that trail. These are little floating devices. They have 4 arms. There's a solar collectors in the middle, and the little impellers below it just very slowly circulate the water. So I was talking with Vicki Hellman, who is the director of the Ipswich Water, and she told me that because they run all day during with the solar power, that just that slow movement of these impellers or propellers below the water circulates the water and somehow stops algae growth, keeps the water a little fresher, and like she said, keeps the amount of chemicals have to use to keep the water fresh here for our water supply way down. We've reached the service road that the utility departments, both the water and electric department, use for storing some of their materials. There's also gravel, sand, probably DPW. The power lines here going for miles and miles. Hard to believe that those lines must bring all the electricity to Ipswich. Of course, we have a power plant that was built in 1894, and that's where we're headed right now. Take a look at that. So what we're seeing here is the spillway for the overflow for the water. I don't think that this is actually where the water pipes are. There's actually a pipe down deep that carries the water. Eventually it's pumped up to the water treatment plant. But our water levels are very sufficient now, so that some water is allowed to flow over into the stream. So this is still Dow Brook, and it will be joining Bull Brook shortly here. And when you cross over High Street, these two brooks join together, become the Egypt River. This reservoir and the Bull Brook Reservoir, which we're going to be visiting on the end of this trip, it's amazing to me that they were dug in 1894 after there were two devastating fires downtown in Ipswich, one that burned Central Street, the other that burned the other end at Depot Square. Finally, the town voted to do a water system, and it only took just a little bit over a year that they had these monstrous reservoirs built and ran pipes all the way from way up here on Upper High Street into town, and supplied water for businesses and very quickly the residences in town. It took, you know, only a couple of years before water was flowing in people's houses. Just imagine how much time it takes today. It's hard to believe they could do that. So we're looking over here on the right hand side as we're walking down. We're looking at the back of the Ipswich power station. So there's a pump house back here. It was built in 1894. The power station was built just a little bit after that. We had electrical in Ipswich by about 1907, I think. There's some generators inside that building that are not used anymore, of course, because they're pretty old. We have some great pictures of them on my site, historicipswich.org, and we'll share them with you on this video. But I want to take a little detour. There's a nice trail that goes around the back. There's aerators there, and we can take a look at the front of the power building. You see these pipes looking across there. Those pipes, each one of those pipes that shoots water up into the air and aerates it. Now right now I don't know why they're actually the water is not flowing through them, but we'll show you some pictures that I took just a couple of days ago when I was here. When they are running and you have a sunny day like this one, it makes this wonderful rainbow, and you get in the right spot and the rainbow goes all the way across the pond. This is the back of the power building, and the generators that are inside of it are used I think once a year. Just they turn them on, they let them run just for a very brief period of time, just to keep them alive. But I don't think they've been actually used for quite a number of years, even when we had, remember, a couple of electrical outages that affected the whole town, because they really just don't meet EPA standards anymore. But let's go take a look at the front of the building. So this facility was begun in 1894 after those two fires, and they referred to it as the Waterworks because that's the initial purpose of the facility. Then the building was completed as we see it today, really early in the 20th century. And for many years, the 6 or so turbines in there, possibly even more, supplied all the power to Ipswich. Now, today we get power on the grid, and it comes from a number of environmentally appropriate sources. The town of Ipswich is an investor in wind turbines out in the Berkshires. We have our own wind turbine, one that's operating, one that's not operating at the moment here. The roof of the town hall is covered with solar panels, and so we're moving in that direction to become to have clean energy here in Ipswich. So we're at the Ipswich Water Treatment Facility, and we're going to go inside, talk to Joe Ciccotelli, who is the operations manager here. I've never been here before. It's exciting.
This is where our intake structures are here, sedimentation basins and rapid mixers. Well, this is where we're doing our first part of the chemical treatment.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, to take a step back, the reservoir is actually the first step with those solar-powered mixers, circulators.
We saw those when we were coming, yeah.
They're used to, the intent is to remove iron and manganese, and also to remove algae. blue-green algae. They're not they're very effective on the iron and manganese, and not so effective on the blue-green algae. We have an upper reservoir. We blend water from that Dow Brook reservoir. You've been back there as well,
right?
And that we transfer over to the Dow reservoir.
So they connect together somehow.
Yeah, there's an underground culvert
from the dam on Bull Brook all the way over to the, and then they merge together.
Exactly.
And does it feed right into to the Dow Brook reservoir?
Yes.
Okay, so gravity feed.
Just a gravity feed.
Okay.
And then from there the water is blended, and then those solar mixers will help blend them. Then we take the water into we have a pumping station down below. That's pumping the water up here. As I said, we have the rapid mixers where they first. So in the raw water vault here, before we get to the rapid mixer, we have a primary disinfectant, chlorine dioxide, and we add some sort of hypochlorite there, some bleach, and it gets mixed into the rapid mixes. It's high shear mixes, and they'll do the initial treatment for the water. Then we go into the next stage. We have other mixes, and we start going to our flocculators, and those are slow paddle mixes. They turn about, I think the first stage is about 7 RPM, the second stage is about 4 RPM, very slow. And then it goes into in that long area down the back there is our sedimentation basin, and that's where the chemicals actually will start blending. It creates a flock particle, which picks up any of the iron, manganese, any contaminants, dirt, whatever comes in through the dirt from the reservoir, and then we take that and it settles out, and from there, that's when we go into the filter room. All the water goes through about approximately 4 feet of granular activated carbon. The carbon does two things. It's a mechanical filter that removes particulate matter. It also absorbs organic material. So anything that may be present in the water, that we don't remove through the flocculation process, then gets removed through the carbon filters.
There's quite a number of steps before it even gets to the filters. Right.
And then once it overflows, it goes into a clear well, which is just basically a holding reservoir for the finished water. And then we pump it out to the distribution system. At that point, we add some additional chemicals. We add fluoride for dental protection. We add sodium hypochlorite, another bleach to add a disinfectant into the system. And that we do a very low dosage on that, but that's to protect from any bacteriological problems. Then we add orthopolyphosphate, which sequesters everything, and it also coats the water mains and keeps the treatment intact, so we don't corrode the linings of the pipes. And we add what's the last thing we add? Sodium hydroxide to adjust the pH and alkalinity.
Okay. So all of that's in the water that goes up to the town reservoir up on Town Hill. And so that pipe travels all the way down High Street? Is that the way it works?
It does. It goes down High Street. It takes a left down on Mitchell Road, goes behind through the cemetery, and then up to Town Hill Tank. But it also will be used. It doesn't go strictly to the standpipe. On the way, some of the water is being used depending on the demand during the course of the day. And obviously, now we only run the plant periodically. We run from about 6 in the morning to about 4 in the afternoon. So at night and on holidays and on weekends, this time of year we'll run the plant an additional day during the week, like on a Saturday or Sunday. Most of the time, most of the year, we rely on our groundwater sources. Our wells, those run independent of the plant for the most part, and they'll supplement the water out there.
They're feeding directly into the system.
Into the system. So, and if there's any surplus or people aren't using it, then like if the wells are running overnight, then we'll add some water to the standpipe as well.
Joe, I was wondering, how does the water get from this plant into people's houses? Is it pumped from here?
Yeah, we have 2 high lift pumps, and those pump directly into the distribution system on the way to the tank, onto the standpipes. And we actually have 3. That's our primary standpipe on Town Hill Tank. It's a 3 million gallon tank.
Wow.
We also have 2 additional standpipes, one out on the Little Neck, Plumber Hill Tank, that's a 500,000 gallons, and we have a 1 million gallon standpipe in Pinefield area. So we have like three separate pressure zones in town. You know, none of those tanks are not really connected to one another in terms of, you know, seeing what one another is doing. So we have to try and maintain 3 separate pressure zones. And that seems to work out for the system.
So far this year, it looks like we've gotten enough water to maybe replenish the water supply.
Right now we're okay. Right now we're in pretty good shape. You know, we got about 1.5 inches of rain over the weekend, so that helps. But you know, we're still in a situation, obviously, because of the way the building is going on in town. So it's you know, all of the infrastructure is really you know, is being stressed right now, I'll put it that way.
Right.
You know, because if they continue building the way they do, you know, we're not going to have adequate infrastructure to support everything. Water, wastewater, electric, you know, public safety, everything. Everything is...
so there's going to be a reckoning of some sort. We're at the second half of our hike here. We're heading over to the Dow Brook Reservoir. So we just came down from the water plant. Right over here is the electric plant. The power lines are right there, and there's a little paved road, and then you see this gate. So this again is part of the water supply. So right through the gate, and we're going to head over to the Dow Brook Reservoir. So we just entered the trail, and on the left, you look down here, you see some stone formations. This is the remnants of it was a grist mill, and then it became a sawmill. It was one of the earliest mills and dams and mills in Ipswich. It was constructed by Jeremiah Jewett. He, of course, was the descendant of the Jewetts who owned all the land around here. Interesting guy. They'd been talked about putting a dam here and a mill for years, and so he finally got around to doing it. He was very successful. He went on to become our representative in general court, and he was also one of those men who gathered together and called a town meeting for which Ipswich is known as the birthplace of American independence, and we declared that we would not be subject to taxation without representation. So we're not going to go down in there because tick season seems to be pretty bad this year. We've gone just a few more feet past the old grist mill there, and we're at the rear of the water treatment plant. And what we're seeing here are the sediment pool. So after all that water is filtered, and you know the minerals and other organic material is filtered out, it has to settle somewhere. And it goes into these sedimentation pools. Joe explained that it evaporates and becomes thick like Jello, and then a contractor comes and takes it away. I don't know where it goes, but that is the final stage of removing all those impurities in the water. First saw this, I just thought, what is this? Who would live this? What could they do with it? And it turns out it was constructed by the Ipswich Fire Department. It's for practicing fire escapes, fire emergency operations. Really unusual structure. I don't know if they still use it anymore. We come to the Dow Brook Dam. So this reservoir is maybe only a third of the size of the Dow Reservoir, but it has a larger watershed. So you can see the water going over it. Now, the water from this one, as Vicki and Joe explained to me, this water tends to be a little dirtier than the water that's in the Dow Reservoir. So the Dow is our primary water source. However, during the drought months, sometimes that reservoir is not sufficient in and of itself. So this water then is pumped. Now there's a pipe that we can't see. It's a 36-inch pipe in the ground, and because this is actually higher than the Dow Reservoir, gravity feed takes it to the other reservoir where it's mixed in, and then of course then it goes to the water treatment plant. It's all treated. As soon as you get past the dam for the Dow Brook Reservoir, you come to a fork here, and either way is good. If you go right, it just takes you a little farther away from the reservoir. I like to go left on this a little narrower trail that's used because it keeps you right by the water. So we just came to a fork. We're approaching the end of this this really nice walk. We're going to go to the right, and that'll take us back that'll take us to the mile lane playing fields. If we were to go to the right, in this direction here, that would take us on that longer loop that I talked about earlier on. That would bring you back to Dow Brook Reservoir, and you would actually go by that huge rock that I mentioned. So a little extra. I often do this walk from here because I live closer to the mile lane fields, and you can park there. So let's go see what's on that trail. Soon after you take that fork, you'll come to this nice little footbridge, and it's kind of a causeway that crosses the Bull Brook Reservoir. So obviously the bulk of the water is there, but if you come over here on this side, the head of the reservoir is just straight ahead around the turn. And you might, if you saw, maybe it was episode 2 or 3, we went to Damon Farm. We were at Turkey Hill up off of Pine Swamp Road, and at the end of that episode we drove a little farther up Pine Swamp, and we saw the headwaters of Bull Brook. There's a nice swamp. That's why they call it Pine Swamp Road. So that water makes it across, goes in the area of the school, the elementary school, and then Marini Farm, and it crosses over here. The watershed sort of gets together, forms Bull Brook, and here we are. Well, we made it to the mile lane playing fields. The trail is not really signed here. It's back behind the fields. You go to the rear by the sign, just take a right, and you'll see the trail continues from there. We have some pretty good organizations to thank for that. First of all, the Town of Ipswich Open Space Program, the town for putting together the Dow and Bull Brook Conservation Area. Essex County Trail Association does a lot of work on these trails that they don't even own, but their volunteers come out and build bridges, take care of the trails. Essex County GREENBELT, again, we've been on this number 6 destination Ipswich. We've been on some of their lands as well. And so I also want to thank Vicki Howman from the Water Department. She provided me with a lot of information. Joe Ciccotelli was wonderful. He met with us over there. And of course, Ipswich ICAM. Randall Collum, who does this wonderful filming for us each week and produces these for us. Why do we need so much open space? Over half of the land in Ipswich is open space. But when you think about it, we as human beings are only just actually 1/100th of the biomass on the face of the earth. And yet somehow in just a few thousand years of humans being dominant here, we in our livestock have almost replaced the natural wildlife that was here on Earth before us. So it's wonderful living in a town that really takes this wildlife and conservation seriously. So stay tuned for the next destination Ipswich, and visit the Historic Ipswich site at historicipswich.org. Thank you for coming.